Hi viewers, welcome to Deep Dive America. What if I told you every major news story you've ever read was potentially shaped by a secret CIA program? In 1975, Senator Frank Church uncovered Operation Mockingbird, a shocking scheme where the CIA recruited over 400 journalists to manipulate the news. But here's what they don't teach you. Declassified documents prove this wasn't just Cold War history. Former CIA directors admitted it on tape, whistleblowers named names, and the most disturbing part? The same tactics are still used today. Recently leaked files reveal how the CIA planted fake stories, bribed foreign media, and even influenced Hollywood scripts. Even now, reporters who dig too deep into this topic mysteriously lose their jobs or face bizarre setbacks. In this video, we'll expose the buried FBI files that prove Mockingbird never truly ended, analyze modern examples of media manipulation, and reveal why most outlets still won't touch this story. We'll also show you how to spot the signs of propaganda in today's headlines. Before we dive in, subscribe to Deep Dive America for the uncensored truth you won't hear anywhere else. Let's begin. Operation Mockingbird was launched in the early 1950s, during the most intense years of the Cold War, when fear of communism dominated American politics, and the CIA was determined to control the global narrative. The agency understood that winning hearts and minds was just as crucial as winning battles, so they turned to the press. According to now declassified internal memos, CIA Director Allen Dulles didn't just greenlight the idea, he funded it personally, directing taxpayer dollars into secret programs aimed at recruiting journalists from some of the most trusted news organizations in the country. Outlets like the New York Times, CBS, and Newsweek weren't just reporting the news, they were, in many cases, unknowingly or willingly broadcasting CIA-approved stories. But it went deeper than editorial suggestions. Many reporters were covertly on the CIA's payroll, functioning as both journalists and intelligence operatives. One declassified memo even shows how the agency planted fabricated news stories in Latin American publications to justify U.S.-backed coups and political interventions. In another case, Pulitzer Prize-winning articles were revealed to have been ghostwritten entirely by CIA operatives. And this wasn't the work of a few rogue agents operating off-script. This was a coordinated, high-level campaign. Presidents like Dwight Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy were briefed on the program and allowed it to continue. Former CIA officer John Stockwell later confirmed that by the 1960s, the agency had placed hundreds of assets inside newsrooms across the U.S. The scope was so massive that even Carl Bernstein, the investigative journalist known for uncovering Watergate, published a groundbreaking 1977 Rolling Stone exposé naming specific journalists who had cooperated with the CIA. Despite the Church Committee's revelations in 1975 that were supposed to put an end to this manipulation, the truth is more unsettling. Operation Mockingbird didn't die. It went underground, rebranded and adapted, using more sophisticated tactics that still shape the information we consume today. When Senator Frank Church led a special Senate committee to investigate abuses by U.S. intelligence agencies in 1975, one of the most shocking revelations was a program called Operation Mockingbird, a covert CIA scheme to manipulate the media. But the way it was presented to the public was carefully framed. Church's team described Mockingbird as a Cold War-era project that had already been shut down, as if it were a relic of a darker time now safely behind us. However, internal documents and later leaks told a very different story. Leaked transcripts from the hearings show that the CIA lied under oath, downplaying the size and reach of the program. Even Senator Church himself later admitted that what his committee found was just the tip of the iceberg. Whistleblowers like former CIA analyst Victor Marchetti confirmed that Mockingbird never truly ended. It simply evolved into more subtle forms. Astonishingly, over 200 pages of the committee's final report were heavily redacted, especially the sections involving media infiltration. Critical witnesses, like CBS News President Richard Salant, were quietly excluded from testifying, raising questions about who was protecting whom. And the trail doesn't stop there. A 1976 FBI memo warned of a strategic shift. Instead of embedding agents in newsrooms, intelligence-linked journalists were now being repositioned in think tanks, policy groups, and academic institutions, places that still influence the media narrative but are less scrutinized. This pivot became obvious in the 1980s when networks like CNN began hiring former CIA directors, including William Colby, as so-called independent commentators. By 1982, the CIA formalized this tactic with a memo titled Public Affairs Guidance, which explicitly encouraged agents to influence journalists indirectly through what they called third-party validators, trusted public figures who could subtly push the agency's message without raising suspicion. These validators, often perceived as unbiased experts, helped maintain the illusion of objectivity. The practice continues even now. When lawmakers attempted to reopen the investigation in the 1990s, the CIA stonewalled them, refusing to release documents on the grounds of national security. But in retrospect, the conclusion becomes unavoidable. The Church Committee wasn't the end of Operation Mockingbird. It was a carefully managed damage control effort designed to convince the American public that the problem had been solved, when in reality it had only gone deeper underground. Fast forward to the present day, and you don't need to dig deep to find signs that Operation Mockingbird's tactics are still alive. They're just more refined, more digital, and far more insidious. In 2014, award-winning CNN journalist Amber Lyon went public with a startling revelation. She was pressured by her network to soften or omit criticism of Bahrain's authoritarian regime after U.S. State Department officials intervened. This wasn't editorial discretion, it was geopolitical messaging. Then came WikiLeaks' explosive Vault 7 release in 2017, which confirmed something out of a spy thriller. The CIA had developed tools that could remotely edit or delete digital content, even after it had been published online. Think about that. News that appears trustworthy could be silently rewritten without your knowledge. The manipulation doesn't stop there. The 2020 Twitter files, released by independent journalists, showed that the FBI had been flagging factual stories as misinformation to suppress them, stories that were later proven true. The technique echoed Mockingbird's blueprint: discredit truth by controlling the platforms that disseminate it. Former CIA officer Robert David Steele didn't mince words. He stated that most major journalists are effectively assets, trained not to lie outright but to strategically omit facts that conflict with official narratives. You saw this clearly when the Hunter Biden laptop story, confirmed authentic, was buried just weeks before the 2020 election. Or rewind to 2003. The narrative about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, which justified a war, was spoon-fed to the public through respected outlets like the New York Times. What's changed is the finesse. Today, media manipulation doesn't rely on bribed reporters so much as anonymous sources, algorithmic suppression, and supposedly independent fact-checkers, many of whom have direct or indirect ties to intelligence-linked think tanks like the Atlantic Council. A Stanford University study from 2021 revealed that 80% of the viral stories debunked online were labeled by just 3 organizations, each with funding or personnel overlap with the CIA. And the cost of telling the truth hasn't changed either. Investigative journalist Gary Webb exposed the CIA's role in funneling crack cocaine into American cities. He was found dead with 2 gunshots to the head. Michael Hastings, who exposed corruption at the highest levels of the military and intelligence agencies, died in a suspicious high-speed car crash. These aren't isolated tragedies, they're warnings. This isn't some fringe conspiracy theory. It's a well-documented system of control that's evolved with the technology of the times. The names may change, the methods may get slicker, but the end game remains the same: dominate the narrative and silence dissent. And if you know what to look for, the signs are everywhere. Here are 5 undeniable red flags that a so-called news story might actually be Mockingbird 2.0, modern propaganda wrapped in journalism. First, Be suspicious when a report leans heavily on anonymous officials or unnamed intelligence sources. This isn't just sloppy reporting, it's a deliberate tactic straight from CIA manuals, designed to introduce unverifiable narratives into the public discourse. When no one can be held accountable, anything can be said, and nothing can be proven or disproven. Second, watch for timing. Stories that emerge just before elections or regime change operations, especially those that conveniently vilify foreign leaders, often align too perfectly with U.S. geopolitical interests. These aren't coincidences, they're narrative operations. Third, beware of fact-checkers. Many people trust them blindly, but few investigate who funds or staffs these organizations. Groups like Bellingcat and the Atlantic Council present themselves as neutral watchdogs, yet both have deep financial and personnel ties to Western intelligence agencies. These aren't unbiased fact-checkers, they're narrative enforcers. Fourth, take note when multiple major outlets suddenly use the exact same phrases or headlines. That's not just lazy journalism, it's usually the result of centralized talking points being pushed to every newsroom simultaneously. It's a modern echo chamber created on purpose. Fifth, the limited hangout. This is when media break a story but only reveal part of the truth to pacify curiosity while hiding the deeper corruption. Take the coverage of Jeffrey Epstein. The media focused on his death but strategically ignored his powerful client list. That's not oversight, it's obfuscation. And let's not forget the tech side. YouTube, which billions use as a news source, has algorithms that subtly shape what information you see. A 2023 MIT study found those algorithms suppressed search terms like CIA drugs or false flag, topics too close to uncomfortable truths. So what can you do about it? You don't need to wear a tinfoil hat, but you do need to stay skeptical. Cross-check major claims with independent journalists who don't take money from governments or think tanks. Follow the funding trail behind every expert source. And most importantly, always ask yourself, who benefits from this narrative being accepted as truth? Because as former NSA whistleblower William Binney once warned, the goal isn't just to lie, it's to make you doubt all truth. In a world where manipulation hides in plain sight, recognizing these red flags is the first step toward reclaiming your ability to think critically. Now, let's explore why this awareness isn't just helpful. It's essential in today's climate. With trust in traditional media at an all-time low and AI-generated content flooding timelines, the legacy of Operation Mockingbird is more relevant than ever. The upcoming 2024 election could be a defining moment. Will the media once again amplify government narratives about foreign interference without demanding hard proof? Will dissenting voices be silenced under the guise of combating misinformation? Programs like the Pentagon's Counter-Disinformation Unit and the NSA's Media Leak Tracker are already monitoring journalists and whistleblowers. But this issue goes beyond political sides. It's about unchecked power steering public perception. As whistleblower John Kirikou warned, they don't control what you think, they control what you think about. Still, there's hope. Independent journalism is on the rise, and encrypted tools are helping truth-tellers bypass censorship. The key is recognizing the patterns. If you found this video informative, hit like, subscribe to DeepDiveAmerica, and share it with friends who need to know this history. The biggest weapon against propaganda is awareness, so leave a comment with your thoughts. What story do you think was a Mockingbird op? Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next Deep Dive.